apparently another example this the thing came out that are So this was a long ass review, and I fucking realized that my camera wasn't recording after talking for a long while. So that was discouraging. Also, this video is not going to be edited. Me and Jackie are preparing something extra special for the month of October, so subscribe if you want to see that. But we're a little caught up in work right now in preparation for that. So forgive me, this video is not edited or color corrected. I'm just going to give you my raw thoughts on this issue and this review. Let's start with the issue first. So I'm reviewing Cuties, in case you didn't read the title of this video. I don't need to tell you what the controversy behind Cuties is. I think everyone knows what it is. Why did I want to review this movie? I usually stray away from topical, hot button issues. But at the same time, I felt this movie deserved a watch. I was going online and people were making assumptions of this movie without really watching the movie. So I thought I'd watch the movie and let you guys know what I thought. And the reason why is because we just live in a generation when people react so quickly to everything, and it's kind of annoying. If you guys remember, a few months back, the movie Joker came out, and people were like, oh, this movie is promoting incelibate violence, it's promoting anarchy, it's promoting this and that, and then the movie won the award at the Venice Film Festival, whatever the fuck it's called, the Golden Monkey, the Crouching Tiger, the Hidden Dragon, whatever the fucking award is called. So it won at the Venice Film Festival, and then people were like, what the fuck, and they're promoting this incelibate movie, and then the movie came out and it had nothing to do with those themes. It had to do with mistreatment of the mentally ill, had to do with wealth divide, it had to do with classism. So yeah, people were a little wrong. They kind of missed the mark. And that just goes to show that you can't judge a movie without watching it. So people were wrong about the Joker, and that's what led me to watch the Joker movie, to make my own opinion. And that's what I'm going to do with this movie, Cuties. That's what I've done with this movie, Cuties. First of all, the issue of child sexualization in film is not a new topic of debate. If you go back all the way to 1976, when Taxi Driver came out, Jodie Foster in that movie plays a child prostitute. Let me just check if this is recording. All right, we're good. So yeah, Jodie Foster in that movie plays a child prostitute. And that, at the time, was very controversial. And they had her walking around with really revealing clothing. And they had her in situations that are a little hard to watch. But that was the intent of the movie. You go even to fast forward a couple of years later, a lot of years later, you look at a movie like Little Miss Sunshine, where the ending of the movie, you see the child doing that kind of dance. That was very, very exploitive and arguably sexualization of children. But I don't think the uproar behind Little Miss Sunshine was as big as the one behind Cuties. I might be wrong. I was really young at the time of that movie's release, but from what I remember, there wasn't that big an uproar. So sexualization of children in film is not a new thing, but I think the general consensus is if the movie has its intent in the right place, then it's more understandable. That's what the case was for Taxi Driver. And depending on your sense of humor, that's what the case was for Little Miss Sunshine. Films tend to... sometimes films portray something, but it doesn't necessarily mean they promote something. You look at a movie like Clockwork Orange. That movie is full of very graphic rape scenes. And it's very hard to watch. And whenever I watch A Clockwork Orange, I have to look away during those scenes because it's really not pleasant to watch. But that's the point of the movie. It's not promoting rape, it's denouncing rape. And so often, people have a very critical lens when it comes to film. People are very quick to judge a film. Oh, it's promoting this, it's promoting this, it's promoting this. And I give that two reasons why people do that for film more so than other art forms. Reason number one, film is a very visual medium. If you describe a rape scene in a book, there's a barrier there that film doesn't have. Watching it is completely different from reading about it or interpreting it in another art medium. So I feel like that's why people are quick to jump on film whenever it's a little hot topic-y. Another reason why people are more stingy on film versus other art mediums is because film is meant for the masses. Film is arguably the most accessible the most accessible form of art you can get. So if the movie Cuties was played in in a museum or an art exhibit, I think there would have been a different reaction to the film versus this movie coming out on Netflix and everyone being exposed to it. And that's a bit of the fault of Netflix. Netflix knows that it's a very popular streaming service right now, and they should know better not to put something that's like that on a streaming service like that. This would have been a more appropriate film for something like the Criterion Channel, where those are just for film buffs and art snobs and stuff like that. Where the Cuties controversy differs from the Clockwork Orange controversy is that Cuties deals with young children versus Clockwork Orange. I'm assuming that in Clockwork Orange, all the actors on set agreed and consented to be in that scene, but you can't really make that argument for Cuties. You look at a movie like Bruno. Yeah, I get it. Bruno is a goofy movie. But they had a really hard-to-watch scene. There's a scene where Bruno is saying, hey, I'm having a baby shoot, and he's auditioning kids, and the parents are basically doing anything to have their kids in this movie or in this photo shoot. So he asks one of the parents, does your kid feel comfortable being around bees? And the parents are like, oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that, to me, is where the Cuties controversy becomes justified. You can argue that kids can't really consent to being in this kind of film. But at the same time, the movie isn't promoting sexualization of children. So I don't know, I'm a bit on the fence about this whole debate. There are arguments for, there are arguments against, and I think both sides of the debate are equally valid, depending on your approach. But nonetheless, I chose to watch this movie because ultimately, I think the biggest sin you can do to a film is to judge it before watching it. So I'm going to review the film, and you guys can make your own decision. Do you want to watch it? Do you not want to watch it? That's completely up to you. And there's no shame in not watching a movie because you don't agree with it. I didn't like the whole handling of the Mulan production. I thought there was a lot there that was troublesome. So I'm trying to stay away from Disney movies for a while. So if you don't want to watch this movie because it's a sensitive issue to you, or because you think it's not appropriate to watch the film, don't watch the movie. No one's forcing you to watch the movie. But I'm here to say that after having watched the movie doesn't promote sexualization of children. It actually does the complete opposite. So just like we were talking about with Joker, people got mad at Joker for supposedly being about incelibate violence. and it turns out it was something completely different. This is another situation like that. That said, this one's a lot more gray compared to Joker. Joker, people who thought it was about incelibate violence were just completely wrong. Like, there's nothing to do with that. However, if you say this movie exploits children, I can see that argument. More so than the whole Joker controversy. I'm going to review this movie like all my other movies, just positives, negatives, overall thoughts. Positives I had with the movie. The movie talks about an issue that I don't think is being talked about enough, and that's the sexualization of children and how much pressure we put on young girls to become mature at such a young age. And I think that's I was talking to my friends about this issue before the movie came out, actually. I think it's horrendous what we're doing to young girls. I don't want to have a daughter in this day and age because the pressures we put on girls is like very negative. It's having a negative effect on their confidence, on their self-esteem. It's leading to their depression and their body dysmorphia. So that's what the movie is dealing with. And ultimately, I agree with what the director is trying to say with this movie. And for the most part, I think the director does a good job at conveying that message. Unfortunately, where the director fails at conveying that message, she kind of falls flat, and that's what is the subject of controversy now. But nonetheless, I agree with the overall message of the film. You watch TV nowadays, you go on something like the Disney Channel, and all of these children are wearing like really tight, revealing clothing. And I was watching America's Got Talent once, and they had these little girls dancing and like shaking their butts, and I'm like, how is this allowed to be on TV? It's troublesome, and this movie does address that issue. So agree with the movie or disagree with the movie. The movie has its heart in the right place. The message of the movie is we're not letting kids be kids, but it's not only because of the media and just sexualization of children. It's not just looking at that. It's also looking at religion and more traditional values. The lead character of this film is Muslim, I'm assuming. And she has a lot of pressures from her family to become more mature. She's 12 years old, and the family's like, it's about time you become a woman. You need to become a woman. You need to start cooking and cleaning and stuff like that. And that is adding to this child's anxiety as well. So I think everything revolving around that is a positive with the film. I thought that was really interesting and an issue that's not being talked about enough in this day and age. Even you look at the music video of Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, which I put on a loop because I love that music video. Okay, no, but you look at that music video, and sure, it has a theme of feminism and being proud of your sexuality, but there's a negative repercussion that comes with that kind of entertainment in media, and that is that it's falling into the hands of young children who are not old enough to understand the inner workings of one Cardi B. So yeah, the movie deals with all of these issues, and I thought that was all interesting. However, I'll get to the negatives later. What am I fucking saying? I'll stick with the positives. The movie also deals with racism or problems with race, and it's not told in your traditional Hollywood way. If this were a Hollywood scene, they would have like one character who would be an overweight white guy, and he'd kind of look like Archie Bunker, and he'd be like, I don't think black women should be astronauts. I don't think black women should work. Hollywood is not the most subtle when it comes to racism in film. This movie is a lot more subtle and a lot more effective when it comes to problems of race. So, yeah, one scene, the character was trying to flatten her hair. She's trying to fit in with other people. There's another scene where one of the black children wants to ask a white guy in her class out, but she's like, no, he's not going to be into me. I'm black and he's white. Those are more modern issues of race and more relevant than what would be portrayed in a Hollywood movie like Hidden Figures or Green Book. So I thought that was really interesting to see too. The lead of this film is very funny. She does a really good job, and she's great as a performance, but for a child performance, this is a great performance as well. A few of the other cast members I had problems with, but the lead of this movie, and her mother too, the mother did a really good job as well, but they're both really good in this movie. Especially, she's really funny in this movie. The mom gives her the phone, she says, your dad wants to talk to you. She just chunks it out of the window. That scene made me laugh. So yeah, she's very charismatic and it works in the film. Negatives I have with the film, so as I mentioned earlier, some of the child performances aren't that good, and I'm a bit more lenient because it's hard to get kids to act. But I had some problems with the others, but overall they were very good together. Whenever these kids came together, and this is more in the first half of the film, they're playing together and stuff like that, I felt like I was watching something like The Florida Project or Little Rascals, and it felt very organic. And then once the movie starts straying away from that, it goes to show the theme of that loss of innocence. So it's very effective on that front. That said, I thought that the first half of the movie was a lot more enjoyable to watch than the second half. And in the second half of the film, that's where people's issues with the film tend to come in. So back to the negatives. I don't think they give enough development to the supporting cast. A lot of the girls have issues, but they don't really go in depth on it. One of the girls is insecure about her weight, but they don't really dive much into her, and she doesn't even have a resolution at the end, except for the fact that she gets kicked in a river or something like that. So they don't give her much character development, and same with the other girls in this main character's gang. Also, the resolution of this film was way too quick. The character changes viewpoints on a dime. Basically, the movie resolves itself in 5 minutes, and it really feels like it comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't feel earned. My last issue with the film is something I've coined under the term of the Last Temptation of Christ effect. What is the Last Temptation of Christ effect? Well, a little background. Back in the 80s, there was a movie called Last Temptation of Christ that was very controversial because there's a scene where Jesus is having sex. Now, it's not done for any negative purpose. It's done because he's about to get crucified, and the devil is trying to tempt him into not sacrificing himself. And he was basically showing what his life would look like if he doesn't sacrifice himself. And we see him have sex with Mary Magdalene. Very controversial scene, but that was the reasoning behind it. And I think the intent behind it was to show the struggle Jesus went through. That said, you're still seeing Jesus have sex, and it's very jarring. And this movie suffers from a similar thing. This movie is condemning sexualization of children, but I'm still watching children being sexualized. And we get into that Clockwork Orange debate. Just because you portray it doesn't mean you promote it. But I found myself struggling a lot in this film to get over that. There's a lot of scenes that I had to fast forward. It's not a pleasant movie to watch when it comes to that regard. At one scene in this movie, I thought Chris Hansen was going to pop out of my TV and be like, "Do you know who I am? I'm Chris Hansen." And yeah, I thought that was going to happen to me. Fortunately, it didn't happen to me. But still, it's very uncomfortable to watch. And I've had a lot of jobs, like in high schools and stuff like that. So to watch this kind of scene was a little off-putting to me. I don't know. Like, it's just a matter of what you can tolerate, I guess. But it was a lot for me. I had to fast forward a few scenes. That said, I'm a bit more forgiving for that. The parts of the movie that really upset me is sometimes the camera would linger on things the camera shouldn't linger on. And that to me was a big problem with the movie. That said, I don't think the intent behind the film was malicious or to promote sexualization of children. I just think that the director could have done a better job at conveying the themes while still not flat out showing it. A little subtlety would have gone a long way with this film. So what are my overall thoughts on the movie? I don't think the intent behind this movie is anything malicious. This movie was made by Maïmouna Doucouré. I can't say that name. But she was the director of the movie, and this is her first movie. She's a rookie. So, yeah, she does some mistakes. And yes, those mistakes lead to an unfortunate outcome. I don't think it's fair, though, to assume that this director is promoting sexualization of children. I don't think it's true, and I don't think that was the intent. And unfortunately, she does some mistakes in this film that might lead one to believe that. That said, it's still a very competent film. There's a lot of scenes that made me think and made me reflect. There's a reason why this movie has a low score on IMDb and a high score on Rotten Tomatoes. And that's because the general public usually rates on IMDb while critics rate on Rotten Tomatoes. And the general public see the movie on a surface level, while critics tend to delve a little deeper into what the film is trying to say. So that's why there's such a great divide between the critics and the public. That said, I understand why people have an issue with this film, because I had an issue with some scenes in this film, but I don't think the intent behind it was malicious. I just don't think that. And if you watch this movie, it's not because you like that kind of material. It's not because you like watching these children put in these gross scenarios. It's just that this movie has a message about how society is feeding into these little girls' insecurities. And sexualization of children is a very big issue in today's society that no one is addressing. And that's unfortunate that this movie has such a big backlash to it, because sure, this director does a few mistakes and they're fair criticisms, but do you think another director is going to want to make a movie about sexualization of children anytime soon? After this controversy, probably not. And there's something a little unfortunate to that. It's such an issue that needs to be addressed, but I feel like directors now are just going to shy away from tackling that because of the whole controversy surrounding this film. So there is something unfortunate to this whole controversy going on. That said, if I had to give this movie a score, I would give it a 6 out of 10. It's a decent movie. It made me reflect a lot. That said, the resolution came in a little too late in the film. Some of the side characters were poorly developed, and ultimately there are scenes that pulled me out of it, and I can't help but have my enjoyment of the film hindered because of these certain scenes. Yeah, that's my general thoughts about the film. Hopefully after posting this video, I still have my job and I'm still employed and I don't get Me Too'd. And comment below, does someone know how to erase your history on Netflix? I share my Netflix with a few people, and I would prefer not to be on the National Sex Offender Registry. Yeah, here we go.